My name is Tiffani Johnson, and this is my Interpersonal Communications project. Please go to the introduction slide. During the semester, we have learned different communication techniques that will allow successful communication. Knowing your identity can help with knowing your personal communication style. Identity is defined by dictionary.com as the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. Learning our behavior blend was key to learning the foundation to our interpersonal communication. The behavior blend model that was introduced to us by one of the authors was based on the DISC model. We are also made aware of some of the communication barriers and walls that we may face when dealing with people of different ethnic and cultural backgrounds, and people that may be dealing with certain things in their personal lives as well. This PowerPoint presentation will discuss the things that I have taken from the class and the readings. It will also discuss the things that can be done to help improve my own interpersonal communication style. Next slide. My overarching goal, or OAG, within my personal interpersonal area is to become more familiar with many things of the deaf community and the deaf clients that I will be working with. Being aware and informed of the deaf community is only a start, however. From there, I must be made aware of different things that the age groups that I will be dealing with may encounter and what issues they may be facing. Not only do I plan on being a deaf counselor and working with deaf kids and deaf families, I also plan on being a marriage counselor. Therefore, I must be aware of different things and issues that may arise in marriages. Enlarging the conversation is described by Stewart as being aware of one's environment, as well as being made aware of one's communication barriers. This is key when you're dealing with people of different backgrounds and having different personality types than your own. Next slide, please. Behavioral blend. My personal behavioral blend was the DIS model. The D stands for active and task-oriented. The I stands for active and people-oriented. And the S stands for passive and people-oriented. Some of the strengths that I found was that I work well in groups and I work well with others. According to my behavioral blend, I also influence others well. And I prefer to be a leader and I work well in certain leadership roles. Some of the weaknesses that I found from the readings is that I'm not always prepared, nor am I always precise or accurate with specific details and facts. Some of the things that I have learned from my background and the behavior blend and things that I can improve on is that I am naturally a people person. This is not only proven in my current profession as a sign language interpreter, but it's also good to have a trait. It is also a good trait to have for the profession that I have chosen, which is a sign language, which is a deaf counselor as well as a marriage counselor. One thing that I can do to improve is to concentrate on the task at hand and to dismiss any feelings of trying to please others. Another thing that I can work on is to be more contemplating and make sure that I collect all the necessary information that I need while working with my client. Next slide. The major barrier to mutual interpersonal communication is a natural tendency that one has to judge, evaluate, or to approve or disapprove the statement of a person. My major communication barriers is I have a tendency to allow my mind to wander and not completely focus. As a solution, one of the authors suggests that take notes while the speaker is talking. This will allow you to focus in on exactly what the speaker is saying and make sure that you have the important and key notes from what the speaker has just said to you. It is also important to have the right timing when you're giving advice. While I have not had this issue personally, it is important to know when is the right time to interject and when is the right time to just wait and allow the speaker to get to a stopping point before you say what you have to say. It is also important that in communication I avoid using certain words such as why and I understand. This may cause the speaker to go onto defense. With that being said, it is important to elaborate on certain words, such as instead of saying why, use words like why do I feel this way? Or why do you feel this way? Therefore, the speaker will express themselves as well as answering the question that you were trying to get from them. It is important to pull from your past experiences, but you cannot allow them to take over the communication. As I stated before, it is important that you listen and practice with new material. This way, when you're working with different backgrounds, different cultures, you can have an idea and learn that you're not always going to face the same background. You're not always going to face the same type of person. No one person is the same. Therefore, listening to new material can allow you to exercise your brain. And that's always a good thing. It is also important to use paraphrasing. This way, you can summarize what the speaker is saying. You can also make sure that you have the important key notes. It's similar to taking notes when the speaker is talking. However, with paraphrasing, you're not necessarily writing anything down, but you can if it's necessary. Okay. Next slide, please. Noise pollution. We learned about inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling is when you're taking in information. And there are three basic processes to inhaling: selection, organization, and inference making. Of these three things, it is important that you make sure that you know that selection is what we choose to notice and how it will ultimately affect and how we respond to certain things and people. Organization is certain patterns and instructions that we use for certain events. And inference making, that is the conclusion that we've made that goes beyond the clues that we have received. And it helps us to make our own interpretation of the event or the person. Perception is also a key part to inhaling, and how we listen, that is key to the process of exhaling as well. That being said, next slide, we will discuss exhaling. Exhaling, it is important that you use the correct language so that you do not break the conversation. This way the conversation flows and the speaker will feel more comfortable when it's your turn to speak. You want to make sure that they will be listening when you're expressing yourself. How you say certain things and what you say, that will make a key difference in the person and how they take the information. And that's important when you're dealing with different backgrounds. Self-disclosure is something else that we discussed. That is revealing how you perceive and are reacting to the present information. While it is important to focus on the now and not focus on the past, unless the past is relevant, you should focus on the now. But if it is relevant, that may be helpful with the client. Opening up, that's important to allowing your relationship to grow. And in a client-therapist situation, that is a type of relationship. And you want to be able to keep those lines of communication open. Next slide. My action plan is to do the listening and the note-taking that I learned from the authors this semester. Listening to unfamiliar material is a great way to challenge my own brain. It will definitely help me in the field that I choose to take, which is counseling. Learning to avoid certain communication traps, that is another thing that I plan to work on. And not using certain words such as why and I understand, so that I don't allow my client to close up. I want to be able to keep those lines of communication open. I also plan to work on using self-disclosure and not revealing too much of my past information. However, if it is relevant, you want to be able to be relatable with your client. So therefore, I would like to be able to make sure that I am using the correct amount of self-disclosure and not revealing too much information, but also being relatable. It's also been proven that therapists who use self-involving disclosures are rated as experts and more trustworthy amongst their clients. This is something that you would want for your client to feel that they can trust you so that they will talk to you. Next slide, please. In conclusion, learning the type of behavioral blend that I am not only helps me to see what type of person I am, but it also helps me to realize some of my own shortcomings in my communication techniques. Being able to identify the communication barriers are very useful when communicating with others. It is important to remember that communication stays open. It is more important as a therapist that I remember to keep my opinions to myself and be open to meeting different and many types of people. Stereotyping is one thing that can ruin a relationship. So this is something that as a therapist you need to make sure that you are not doing at all. It happens, but you need to keep your opinions and personal feelings to yourself. Enlarging the conversation is being aware of your environment, being aware of one's communication barriers. Therefore, being aware of someone's communication barriers, you know how to help them by knowing how to deal with your own personal communication barriers. As a therapist, by enlarging the conversation, you know the appropriate approach to use when dealing with other people. And they may have walls and barriers up. So by enlarging the conversation, it allows you to get more comfortable with the client. There are many times that a counselor may have to deal with patients from different backgrounds, and no one person has the same story. It is important to listen to the different material and new material and review the material that you're learning from your current client so that you can allow your brain time to process and to understand different ways to improve your listening and your own exhaling or responding to the speaker, so that the communication stays open and so that the speaker feels comfortable. Overall, I've learned quite a bit from this course, and I'm happy that I took it. I've learned a lot about myself, and I also learned new ways that I can communicate with others. And I believe that in the future, this will definitely help me in my field, and I can't wait to get started. Thanks for your time. Have a good night.